Thank you for making the time. I think to share with us is 90 minutes to discuss in this session on professionalizing management of rural water systems for sustainable water services delivery with the focus on Uganda. So I would like to, based on the experiences that we have experienced in Uganda, and then also share if we have any on sharing experiences from all over the world, in different parts of the world. We're happy to share together what we can do. And why focus? I mean, we know that in the Sustainable Development Goals, our theme is trying to leave no one behind in the delivery of services, water and sanitation. And the rural areas present very specific challenges. For countries like Uganda in the developing world, over 2/3, 75% of the people in the country are all living in these rural areas under very subsistence arrangement with little, small, comparably lower income levels. But still, we need to provide services. Of course, the discussion of probably safely managed services on site is still a way off. But still in the current, for example, in Uganda, we try to, we say measure access in the distance of 1 kilometer distance, which is about a difficult position. I'm very sure very many people of us here in this room are not able to carry 20 liters of water over a distance of 1 kilometer. Some of us struggle to even run the 1 kilometer without anything on our head. So carrying it with a jerrycan of water is even more difficult. But it's a condition we are. So we are trying to improve these services and reduce this more. And pipe water services, pipe water supply systems help us to reduce and improve services in these areas. Now, as we improve technologies, of course, then it comes with the typical hand pumps have been managed by traditional community-based systems. But now, as we try to improve the system, to improve the level of service to pipe water supply systems, then you introduce more complexity into the system. You certainly need a little more expertise. You need a little bit more of this. But what I started with, again, but you're dealing with a community which is a little bit lower on the economic standing. So with these new transformations of trying to reach everybody within the rural areas is bringing in more complexity. Therefore, we need to explore options and ways of how to professionalize and improve this management of these services. So this afternoon, or this morning, sorry, we want to discuss these approaches that we have explored, we are trying to explore in Uganda, and share views on how we can go forward. We are from the Ministry of Water and Environment. Already from the Ministry of Water, please put up your hands. Yes, here, we introduced individually. I would thank our partners that we are working with, Water for People on this project, IRC, Water Aid, UNICEF, Whave Solutions, the Conrad Hilton Foundation, the Osprey Foundation, Waterloo Foundation, the Ghana Ministry of Sanitation and Water Resources, Ethiopian Ministry of Water and Irrigation, the Rwanda Ministry of Infrastructure. All these are colleagues who have been participating with in trying to make this session work. So I welcome you all, and we believe we're going to have a good time together sharing ideas on this. With that, I welcome Martha Naigaga, who is with me, the Minister of Water and Environment, to take us through how the session is going to run. You're welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Did we have some breakfast? Okay, so I'm going to greet you again, and I see evidence of having taken some breakfast. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. That's much better. Thank you all for coming for this session. And in this session, we are going to spend 90 minutes together discussing how we're handling operation and maintenance of raw water supplies in Uganda, but also learning from other countries. So this session is going to take It's going to take the different forms, and we shall have myself presenting the objectives of why we are here and what we shall learn by the time we leave this place. And I will hand over to a presentation that will be handled by Engineer Ahmed, that will tell us about the whole story in Uganda, and then we shall have a question and answer session, followed by sharing experiences from our colleagues in Tanzania and Ghana, and then we shall have a question and answer session once again and discuss, and finally have closing remarks. And we believe we are going to have a wonderful 90 minutes together. So once again, I welcome you to this session. Thank you so much for coming. And briefly, the objectives of this session will be to share experiences on how operation and maintenance of raw water supply systems has been revolutionized in Uganda over time. We also want to take you through the steps that we have taken as government of Uganda to professionalize the service, and how we have been able to develop a national operation and maintenance framework. And we also want to take you through our journey and the steps that we have taken so far to operationalize this framework. And then we shall also allow experiences from Ghana and Tanzania into this process to have us have a feel of the rest of the continent and how it's working out regarding rural water supply systems. Briefly, that's it from us about the objectives. And without spending much more time, I'd like to invite Engineer Ahmed to come and take us through the overview of the framework and also the progress, achievements, challenges, and strategies going forward. Put your hands together for Engineer Ahmed.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name's Engineer Ahmed Sentumbwe. I'm in charge of operation and maintenance and infrastructure development in Uganda. And I'm here to share with you the story of ensuring sustainability of our rural systems in Uganda. IT support? Yeah, okay. Are you sure it cooperates?
I think we'll go to here. Good.
It's cooperating. To start with, let's look at how the arrangement of the Ministry of Water and Environment in Uganda is. Under the water supply, we have specifically 3 directorates. We have a Directorate of Water Development, Directorate of Environmental Affairs, and that one of Water Resources Management. I'll specifically concentrate on the Directorate of Water Development. Under this directorate, we have 3 departments. There is a Department of Urban Water Supply and Sewage Services. This one is charged with ensuring the supply of water and sewage systems within the urban gazetted areas in Uganda. Then we have the Water Utility Irrigation Department, which is charged with regulating whatever we do during the supply of water for production, as it is stated, charged with ensuring that animals, crops, and all production-related activities access the water that they require. And then we have the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Department, which deals with our rural community. And for your information, in Uganda, over 80% of our community currently stay in the rural subsector. Let's look at what we have in the rural subsector as the water supply technologies. We have deep boreholes, which is a big percentage of the technology we use. We have shallow wells, protected springs, tap stands. Of recently, we are moving towards changing from point sources to piped water systems. So we have realized a lot of tap stands and then rainwater tanks to harvest rainwater. And then that graph shows the percentage utilization of the different technologies. In Uganda, we've been managing the raw systems over time. During the pre-independence time, the management was specifically based on community and volunteerism and government. In Uganda, we had established regional units specifically charged with ensuring functionality of water systems. And by that time, most of the predominant technology that was present in Uganda was borehole drilling. We had a few, depending on the technology at that time, because then we were using the percussion and there were a few point water sources. And Uganda had established borehole maintenance units, 8 of them within the region, that were charged to ensuring that those systems are functional. Over that time, we started developing piped water systems, and we realized that the borehole maintenance systems could not ably manage these systems. And in 1972, we came up with National Water and Sewage Corporation, specifically to be charged with the piped water systems alongside the borehole maintenance system. This went on until 1986, when community-based organized system was introduced in Uganda. So now we started using both the borehole maintenance system and the CBMS. Then 4 years down the road is when I joined the sector, and I was appointed and given charge in one of the big projects that was charged with introducing community-based maintenance system. So we moved together and tried to establish until the borehole maintenance systems were phased out, and the community-based maintenance system structures now took charge of all our systems. During that time, the government now shifted to developing more piped water systems. So we realized that there was a gap where communities could not ably manage those piped water systems. So we came up with an organization in a form of umbrella to support the communities to manage their piped water systems. And this went on until around 2017, when these umbrella organizations were turned into water authorities to directly manage these piped water systems. But then the point water sources, the springs, the shallow wells, and hand pumps, for them remained under the community-based systems. And around the same time, it was realized that we had gaps within the CBMS, and we needed to come up with a system of improving the CBMS, which we refer to as CBMS Plus. That came in play around 2019. Let's see why we had to improve the community-based maintenance system. First of all, it was realized that we were experiencing irregular contribution towards O&M. Different communities had varying community contribution, although they were in the same area. We had no mechanism to safeguard the O&M funds. And this created mistrust between village water committees and the users, and the communities in some of the water points refused to continue with the contribution. We realized that we had no clear mechanism of spare part supply chains, and there was lack of adequate monitoring system that had to be addressed. We looked at what we had as a structure within the country, and we designed the CBMS Plus basing on that structure. In Uganda, we have a structure that's central, then we have regional structures, then the local government, districts, sub-counties, up to the community. So we designed the system such that all those levels get professionally involved in the management of the rural sources. This community-based maintenance system plus was based on 4 principles. First of all, it aimed at empowering the area-based approach, the local government, so that they can take charge of their system, and they do it in a professional management approach that ensured timely support. We looked at ensuring financial sustainability and availability of quality spare parts. But to do this, we needed a legal framework. And that legal framework had to come in the form of a new O&M framework that was formulated around the same time. And I would like to call upon Yon to continue with what the new O&M framework entails.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Yvonne Lugali, and I work as the Sustainability Manager with Water for People. So I'll just quickly continue from where Assistant Commissioner has stopped to explain the framework that he's actually talking about that really provides guidance to the CBMS Plus model. So this framework was developed, of course, with funding from the Royal Danish Embassy and UNICEF. That was in 2019. And ideally what it does is it really just guides the management of these rural water supplies, just like has been talked about. So the focus is on mini piped systems and also hand pumps. And the idea is that you then have the district local governments as your authorities, who then get into a management contract with professional maintenance operators, who we then refer to as the area service providers. So from 2019 to date, of course, a lot has been done in terms of a roadmap. So the first thing, of course, you need to put up the structure, which is now where you're thinking through how you're able to get the districts to then become water authorities. And so a lot of work has been done in terms of dissemination at all levels, dissemination and buy-in, right from the communities moving all the way up to the district. Training materials have been developed and also disseminated. Training of district local governments, water and sanitation supply boards, and even some area service providers, because already within the communities you do have operators who are already handling some of this. So just being able to let them know about what's happening. And then a lot of learning and review sessions have been held. So this framework was developed in 2019, and there are so many things that change as you begin to do a lot of implementation. So you learn, and then you rework it, you're reflecting on things, you say maybe this did not happen, and then all of that. So that has all been going on. And then, of course, that's the enhancing the capacity for the stakeholders. Then we looked at strengthening advocacy and communication as one of the other plans. And so, of course, I've talked about the stakeholder engagement, awareness, in the communities, the legislators, the politicians, the CSOs. A lot of CSOs are supporting the government of Uganda in terms of putting up this infrastructure. And so all of that infrastructure still has to be able to fit within this framework. So even as you're drilling a borehole or you're supporting communities with mini pipe systems, it's important for you to be able to put all of that within the framework, the confines of the framework. The third component, of course, is the establishment, planning, and documentation, the reorganization of the water source committees. So initially, the water source committees at the community, for each source, so each source is required to have a water source committee. Previously, this committee would have sometimes even close to about 9 members. The framework applies for only 3 members. So you have the chairperson, you have the secretary, and then you have a treasurer. So a lot of reconstitution has had to be done, particularly for newer sources, so as you're moving forward. Of course, also the setup of the water supply and sanitation boards, both at the sub-county and the district level. And then once you have those boards, and those boards have been approved by at the sub-county, it has to be approved by the sub-county council, which are the politicians. At the district, it also has to be approved by the district council. And then it's at that point that then these names are submitted to the Ministry of Water and Environment, who have to approve them, and the district council, the district boards have to then apply for gazettement, so that they are then gazetted as an authority, a water authority. Then it's that water authority that is then supposed to procure the area service provider through a management contract. So a lot of that is actually being done in terms of the establishment, but also being able to pick up on the lessons and the documentation. And then finally, because this framework is meant to improve the functionality of these sources, it's important for you to know how many sources do you have as a district, what is their state, and then the framework says that before you hand over to an area service provider, that point should be functioning. So the third component is being able to improve the asset management and the functionality. So you're looking at asset analysis, updating your asset registers, rehabilitating your non-functional facilities. A lot of capital maintenance is going in, but also ensuring that there's an establishment of your supply chain. Because again, one of the principles of the CBMS Plus model is to ensure that you have a supply chain that can then be able to allow, whenever there is need for repair, that those products are there. So this is currently how the progress is, the rollout progress. So the pink color is where we've had the dissemination up to the regional levels. Then the light blue color, that's dissemination that has been done within the districts at the sub-county level and the district levels. The darker blue color is where you have boards, particularly sub-county boards, that have been put in place and have been approved by the district local governments. The green is, sorry, thank you. So the green is, can they still hear me? Even here? Okay.
Yeah, you probably did quite
Great.
as much on for it, yeah.
All right, thank you. So the green is where you have the district water boards are in place and have been approved by the district local government council. And the yellow is where you have these boards have been approved by the Ministry of Water and Environment. So you can see that for many of the districts, even as they're split across the different regional centers, so the country is divided across decentralized regional centers that then are able to provide that support to the districts. So you find that many of the districts still at the level of dissemination. So there's actually a lot of work that needs to be done to ensure that we move to having these boards approved. Currently, there is only one district in Uganda, actually I think maybe there are like one or two, yes, that are actually water authorities within the country. Yeah, and so of course the ones in yellow, many of them now have actually submitted their applications because they've been approved, the boards have been approved, and so they've actually submitted their applications for gazettement. So this, in the next couple of months, really should actually be able to change, and we should already begin to see districts that are now water authorities. So of course, with every process, there are definitely bottlenecks. Just like I've mentioned, you start right from the water source committees, get the 3-member committee, then you ensure that those committees sort of get together and then form a sub-county board. And then from a sub-county board, you then move to ensuring that those sub-county boards are still able to meet together and then constitute the district board. So one of the bottlenecks, of course, has been that the board formation processes at the sub-county and district levels are long, they can get expensive and also cumbersome. Because again, some districts have a lot more sub-counties, a lot more water points than others. So that has definitely been one of the bottlenecks. The other one is insufficient awareness and understanding of the framework and the CBMS Plus model. Ironically, not only with the communities, but even with us ourselves. People have different views, how they feel about this model and even the way we are working. So there's definitely insufficient awareness and understanding. In some of the districts, there's been a slow political buy-in, which has then definitely affected the process, the rollout process. Weak coordination among stakeholders, conflicting stakeholder interests. Like I mentioned, government has interests, CSO players have their own interests, communities have their own interests. So sometimes those might not necessarily be the same, and that definitely can affect the stakeholder interests. That can affect in terms of the rollout. And then finally, of course, the non-functional systems that have to be rehabilitated. A lot of money is needed when it gets to ensuring the rehabilitation of the non-functional systems. Like I mentioned earlier, you can only hand over a functional system. So if you have several non-functional, then the government has to invest to ensure that they're up to speed before they can actually be handed over to the area service providers. So what do the next steps look like? There's been a lot of conversation around what would be the geographical coverage of these area service providers. Is it a district? Can an area service provider have more than one district in which they're operating in? If they do have more than one district, do they have to sign management contracts with every district? Or do they have to sign it with a regional structure? Do we have that regional structure in place? So of course, a lot of conversation is happening within the sector around what can we be able to define what this geographical coverage for the area service provider will look like, yeah? And then what would be that sort of legal instrument that you'd be using for such an area service provider. A lot of times, the users in the communities have been collecting their fees, and so it's been cash. But as you saw in one of the principles is financial management. And one of the challenges of the CBMS model was the fact that either people would not collect money, and when they would collect money, they would misuse it. Yeah, and so by the time we needed to repair or rehabilitate a broken down water point, then the money wouldn't be available. So of course, being able to roll out a cashless payment system for user fees, this has been tried out in several districts across several partners like JICA and the others, to also see that there's a cashless system or you're using a token and things like that. So the idea is to pick up from those lessons. Being able to refine the financial management mechanism. So the way this would work is that where would the money go once it's collected? Who is the custodian for that money? Because these are still public funds. So it's very, very important that the financial system has to be very clear. And then how does the area service provider then get to be able to access that fund? Do they put in their money up front? Do you pay them for the service? How do you pay them? When do you pay them? So those are all some of the discussions that are happening now in terms of refining the financial management system. It's important that there's fast tracking of the gazettement of these districts into water authorities, because that's the most important bit. You cannot have an area service provider operating without a water authority. So a lot of fast tracking is happening, as well as being able to undertake countrywide rehabilitation of non-functional systems. Yeah, and so I'll end this with just being able to recognize a lot of the partners who have supported this process: DANIDA, JICA, UNICEF, the Hilton Foundation, and also actually the Waterloo Foundation. There are several partners within the country that are also supporting in these processes: Water for People, Wave Solutions, IRC, Uganda Water Project, International Lifeline Fund, Wells of Life, and many others. Thank you very much. I will invite Jen from IRC to take us in the next session.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Can we have a nicer acknowledgement of Engineer Ahmed and Yvonne? Thank you very much. This is really a Government of Uganda process. It's not every day that government comes out, openly to share, and especially to share the challenges. This is a framework by government, and it's taken quite some time from when engineer joined the sector. Things have been rolling right from there. We're getting into a Q&A. If you have any question, if you have any comment, any clarification, the mic is in the middle there. Please just stand up, go to the mic, and ask your question. Yvonne and Engineer Sentumbe, probably you'll need to come to the front where people will see you. So if you have a question, please feel free, just stand up, go to the mic, and ask your question. We'll take a few questions first, and then we'll get some responses.
Sure.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you both for the presentations. I thought it was great. Yvonne, first of all, one of the things that you mentioned was the importance of asset management and being able to track functionality. So, I just want to reinforce and echo that. Like, we see that as a very important piece as well. I should have introduced myself. I'm Tanner Hoffman with the Ugandan Water Project. We are supporting an initiative to do that with your colleague, Engineer Ivan, at the ministry called RUMIS, and I think that can play perhaps an important role in both area service providers being able to get the data that they need to manage and operate, but then also district and national level governments getting up-to-date asset registries and functionality records. So just a brief comment on an initiative that we're working on with some of the partners in this room as well. But the piece that I wanted to hit on for a question specifically is for area service providers to operate in this O&M space, there needs to be space for those operators to run efficient and streamlined operations. Like, it needs to be a financially sustainable enterprise. So what are some of the provisions that you guys are putting into the framework for O&M service providers that carve out space for those efficient operations, for control over the cash flow for business operations, and just other elements that will keep the administration and bureaucratic requirements down so that those service providers can offer excellent service at an affordable price for water users. Thank you.
Hi, thank you both so much. Maybe it's a bit of an extension of that point, but I'm wondering about the process for actually getting communities to sign contracts with service providers. So I have heard that in other settings and similar types of initiatives that sometimes it's hard to get to the point of a contract being signed. You know, maybe it's willingness to pay or trust in service provider, but I'm wondering if you can talk about processes for making that happen and making that happen productively to get at maybe some of the economies of scale that are required for the financial sustainability that Tanner was talking about. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see anyone behind the mic. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. This is really an interesting development in the water sector of Uganda. Just a kind of clarification question in terms of learning by way that we can adapt a few of steps we are following. Why have you chosen professionalization of the management aspect in a way that the whole holistic approach of the professionalization of the service itself? My understanding from the presentation is only one element is picked out of the whole professionalization of the service, and what paths have you driven you to take this element is one. And you said that 80% in Uganda is almost rural, it's almost same in the continent. How do you see this system between rural and urban dynamics? You see, in urban, there is a different water supply context and utility operation, and rural is almost different in our case. How are you managing those dynamics between the two? Thank you.
Yes, Ntumbwe, Yvonne, you can start responding. Engineer, probably will start. Okay.
Okay, so let me answer the easier questions. And I'll leave the harder ones to Engineer Sentumbwe. So I'll speak up on the process for the signing and being able to get the communities. And I'll probably just share the experience that we've had as Water for People. It's easier to get people to sign contracts when they see the value add. Yeah, so most times it's easier for you to get people at the point when they had a non-functional borehole, and then you support them to have it rehabilitated, and then it's much easier for them to be able to subscribe to the service. And so we've also seen this mechanism also still being used by the districts as well. So for those communities where, because the districts always have a budget every year to rehabilitate some of the non-functional points, and so for many of those communities, those are usually the first line candidates for this service, and it's much easier to get them on board. And then you also, of course, have to work within the social fabric of how human beings are. That when I see that, oh, okay, the other village, their things seem to be moving, then I might also then want to get part of that same process. So for those who have non-functional boreholes, they're easier. Then for the others, you then have them when they see that there's actually a consistent service being provided, then they'll also be encouraged to be able to sign. But I think, like I've also mentioned, it's very important for them to begin to appreciate this framework and what the framework is supposed to be supporting in terms of the management, and the fact that they are still very integral to the process, but we're just saying that for that piece of the management, that is actually what you're giving. So they are still involved in everything around their water source. They'll still sort of not own it in quotes, but just saying that for the piece of the management, you're giving it to someone else so that they manage it for you, but it essentially really is yours. Yeah, I think the other questions I'll give them to engineer. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions that have come up. It's an indication that you taken interest in the presentation. There is a question where there is worry of space for the area service providers to operate when it comes to financial management and other aspects. Under the framework, it is clearly specified that the day-to-day management of operation and maintenance has been moved away from the bureaucratic government systems, and there is an established a parallel arrangement that is managed by the district water boards. These district water boards are the ones that procure the area service providers and ensure that communities they contribute towards O&M, and separate accounts are going to be utilized during the operation of this CBMS Plus, separate from the conventional government accounting system. But still, we have mechanism of ensuring that those funds, although they are not following the government bureaucratic systems, they are safeguarded from any form of misuse. So the area service provider will always be facilitated both from the community contribution and the subsidy that is sent to local governments annually by the central government. Then there was the issue on signing contracts with communities. This framework was developed basing on experience from organizations that had piloted as area service provider within the country. Over time, we had sector actors that have been trying to pilot as area service provider. One in point is Wave Solution. We have the Uganda Water Project and others, the Lifeline. So when they were piloting this area service provider aspect, they didn't have the legal mandate to make sure that all communities subscribe to their arrangement. So like these organizations were signing contracts with communities, every water source community, for consent. But under this new framework, once a district authority is gazetted as a service provider in that area, then it will be mandatory for all communities to contribute towards operation and maintenance through the set process done by the boards and the area service provider. So there will be no need for signing those contracts with individual communities. Then there was the question about the management arrangement for urban, for rural. Under the framework, it is clearly stipulated that the area service providers will handle only those sources that are not gazetted to the existing authorities. Because in Uganda currently we have the umbrella authorities and we have the national water. So the systems that are already gazetted to those utilities will be out of the area service provider arrangement. So the ASPs will handle those systems that are not
gazetted already to the existing utilities. So there will be no conflict in the management arrangement. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jen, sorry, maybe just one.
Okay.
I think it was really more of a comment, I think, from Uganda Water Project on the utilization of the roomies. Yes, I do agree with you, and I think they've piloted it in several districts. And I know that even as the different CSOs and the different partners are also supporting, also taking into consideration how that particular platform can still be used, even to be rolled out in several other districts. And the beauty is that it's actually picking on the two forms for the ones that already are within the government system, so it's not necessarily anything that's new. We've also supported several districts as Water for People in terms of doing asset analysis and management, and we're trying to see how we can do a bit of reconciliation for the two, so that it's also much easier. It uses the M-Water platform, which we are also using, so it really should be much easier to do a bit of the joining. Yeah.
Thank you, Yvonne. I think Commissioner wants to add something.
I can use this. Yes, thank you very much, my colleagues. Just one comment which was not also addressed was the issue of the, some ask about why professionalizing only the management bit, and also an additional word on the rural-urban dynamics. Of course, it comes in, it's a stepwise process. What he gave the historical perspective that we went in. So we did a lot of capacity building and professionalizing on the development side. That's why you have people, engineer, Sentumbe here, engineer myself here. So the development side, we have built structures at the district level who are doing more of the development. So much of the past 20 years, we're doing a lot of development oriented. And we came to realization of success. Okay, thank you. We've done all this work with support of IRC, UNICEF, and everybody. We have the systems there, but now when it comes to the management side, that was a broken piece, and systems are beginning to break down. And he has said, okay, now this is a time to refocus more onto, now how do we manage these schemes? That's the biggest challenge that we're having. So that's why we are putting more focus on the professionalizing, the management aspects of it. Now, the rural-urban dynamics are also quite interesting, which you mentioned about. One of the things I always love when I'm landing in developed countries, in the US, in Europe, is from the air you can clearly see a demarcation. The town is here and the rural area is here. Now, if you're landing in Uganda or Ethiopia, in most areas, it will not be that distinct where the rural area is, where the urban is. So it's a continuum of the whole places, and kind of a mix-up. We love it that way. That's how our society has already been lived. But so in the same, we also have to be, we are a bit dynamic and fluid in our demarcation. He mentioned that we have three categories, where we have the large towns and National Water Sewage Corporation, then the small, which you consider small towns, is under the umbrella authorities, and then the major rural areas. But one of the key guiding principle we use is the socio-economic aspects, the money aspects bit of it. Because we know under the National Water Sewage Corporation, the tariff is a little bit higher. That's ideally should be a system that can run on their own by themselves. The middle towns, they pay, again, a slightly higher tariff, but less than the bigger towns, which can manage operations but still need government support, and that's supported by us, the ministry. And then the community-based system, the area supplies, are these very rural areas where we expect the tariff is the lowest, the basic tariff for everybody, common man, which can be able to afford, and that's where we use that aspects of area service providers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Felix. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Abraham Wright from Design Outreach. I noticed one of the key principles was quality spare parts that are available. I was wondering if you could comment about the government's role in providing or ensuring that quality spare parts are available. What accountability is there to the manufacturers, and how's it going? How is that with providing quality spare parts in all the locations? Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hi, John Allen from Oxfam. Congratulations on the progress. I noted for the types of area service providers, you have NGOs, hand pump mechanic associations, and then private service providers. And I'm just interested with sort of the rollout of the framework. what kind of interest has there been from the local private sector in being a private service provider? Is the framework itself has the framework itself been enough to get that type of interest? I guess what are the ingredients that might be needed to have that type of service provider providing services, or is sort of the other options of the service provision by nonprofits and by hand pump mechanic associations, is that sort of farther along? Sorry, hopefully I framed that correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer Yvonne.
Thank you. On the issue of spare parts, what our government has done to ensuring the quality and availability of the spare parts, was it a question? As government, over time, we've been trying to get the spare parts to the communities. But then under the community-based systems, management system we've been operating, communities are supposed to look for resources to procure these spare parts. But then experience has shown that the turnover of spare parts is quite low and discouraging when it comes to business aspects. And that calls for an arrangement within the O&M process whereby the spare parts can be availed to the communities, not in commercial form, but in form of service. And under this new framework, this is anchored on the area service provider. One of the obligations of the area service provider is to make sure that quality spare parts are available to the communities, as compared to the current system where we look at business communities to stock and avail spare parts to the communities, which is not economically viable because of the low turnover. There was a question of the local private sector as area service provider. As it was mentioned by my sister here, we are still in the process of introducing this new system to the community, and in the process we are looking at the low-lying fruits, and currently initially we think of targeting the NGOs, the non-government organizations that have been participating in this process, and we are looking at utilizing the Hand Pump Mechanic Association. For your information, under the community-based maintenance systems, we established association of hand pumps in all the districts of Uganda, and we've been utilizing these associations to make sure that they do rehabilitations that are beyond the capacity of the districts and even the mine repairs. And now we think it will be very easy to transform them from CBMS participation to CBMS plus participation as a service provider. And we have also received the support from some of the sector actors. Whave Solution, we have which other, that are in to try to train the potential area service providers so that by the time they are ready to take on, they already know exactly what they are supposed to do.
Thank you very much. I actually thought it would be helpful to hear from the area service provider in terms of just your perspective on what is tweaking your interest as the framework is going to, as the framework is being rolled out. what do you envision for the future? Maybe if you could just share some insights and highlights. Yeah, Frederick.
Hello. Frederick Bergeron, General Manager for Wave Solution. Wave is a TA and training organization, especially working with hand pump mechanic in Uganda, in over 1,000 water point in 18 district. Two things I wanted to comment on. Evan, there was that question on professionalization of the management and the service. I think it is saying professionalizing management, but it is the direct result is a professionalization of the service, in the sense that, for example, through the framework, it recommends staffing structures for area service provider, including like technical staff, but also finance, monitoring, water quality, etc. So that's something that is taking on. And through our training of Hand Pump Mechanic Association, through our pilot work, we've trained the technical bit, but there's still work to do on these other responsibility I've talked of in terms of monitoring, accounting, and management. And also, in the interest of the private sector, what do we see? One key thing we see is that I think it is recognized by many organizations that it's really an area-based approach to capture all water points which are not gazetted yet by national water and umbrella authorities. So organization that gets into area, being an area service provider, need to really take that ownership of taking all water points, which are either hand pumps or mini pipe scheme, which directly means cross-subsidizing revenue from higher paying places, especially where there's mini pipe system, to cross-subsidize the hand pump for maximum reach. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Engineer Sentumbe. Thank you, Frederick. And all those who have made comments or asked questions, we appreciate that. In the next very, very few minutes, we'll invite two colleagues from two sister countries. Why do they say sister countries? From two brother countries on the continent, to very quickly, in just 1, 2, 3 minutes, share what is happening in your respective countries on professionalizing the management of rural water systems, what you're doing, what government is doing, just for purposes of sharing and learning. We'll start with Tanzania. Not that Ghana is not our neighbor, but we are starting with Tanzania. Rose, over to you.
Okay, thank you. This is too long for me. I hope you can hear me.
You can use this.
Okay. Okay, good morning. I'm Rosie Riwa, Program Manager, working with Water for People Tanzania. I'll be happy to share our experience in Tanzania. For us, the journey started around before 2019, whereby we used to manage water project, as the government used to manage water project in a traditional way. So there is a lot of change, I think you know, by that kind of system. Non-functioning water project. Sometime when it's a tap, the project is not functioning, the community we are waiting for maybe government to go and replace the tap. So all those challenges make our government to establish a new law, a new act, Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Act by 2019, and the act wanted the rural water sectors to be handled by independent authority. We call it RUWASA. RUWASA is a rural water supply and sanitation agency, so it is independent authority, and from that moment, RUWASA water project was no longer under the district. It is under the separate entity that have the mandate to plan, that have the budget. So they are doing both. They are doing regulation, but also they are also doing the supporting community-based water supply organization in terms of management of rural water. So previously, before RUWASA, we used to have COWOSO. COWOSO is community-owned water supply organization. But after establishment of Rural Water Sanitation Act and RUWASA, we are now using CBWOSO. CBWOSO is community-based water supply organization. It's entity that can be managed by private sector, it can be managed by private entities, NGOs. So for that, you have seen a lot of improvement. Because of the time, I'm going to be specific. So for now, we have the key performance indicators that RUWASAs are using to categorize. This is CBWOSOs. So we have level 4 up to level 1. So most of our CBWOSO, after establishment, they are now falling under level 4 and level 3. That means they are there, but they cannot be able to handle all operational and maintenance costs to recover our full cost. So now what we are doing as a government and the partners, the government, they are doing the major repair and the maintenance, and CBWOSOs are doing the minor repair and maintenance. However, we are still having the few CBWOSO which are operating under level 1 and 2. That means that they can be able to handle operational and maintenance costs, major and the smaller one. So why am I saying that story is that the country targeted to have all CBWOSO in level 1. That means that it will reduce the dependence of the central government, and it will have the business model that CBWOSO can be able to manage and monitor and maintain and sustain water service by their own. So a lot of initiatives have been done, knowing that this is only 5 years initiatives. So they are keeping on making the policy, making the regulation, the standards, the guidelines. And one among the key guidelines is to cluster them. Previously it was like every village has its own water committee. But now they have been clustered. You may find that in the Mpwapwa district where Water for People we are working, we cluster from 52 to 8. So they are now looking like utility. They have professional staff, they have account, and all the money that they are collected, tariff collected through the government electronic payment system, GPG, and even you go now to the internet, you can be able to see how much they are collecting every time. So it is easier to manage them. They have been capacitated in terms of financial management, in terms of the tariff correction and setting, in terms of project planning. They can be able to procure, they can be able to employ. So those things, it used to be like very local, now they are more professionals. I can also give the example of even asset analysis. When we landed in Mpwapwa, one among the things we did in the baseline assessment is to do the asset analysis. You know, sometimes you know, you have to know what you have in your shop so that you can be able to plan well. So that model has helped us in RUWASA to make sure how much we can support them in terms of O&M. They are now having the contract agreement with the local supply owners. They have procured that, and they are now knowing how to do in order to make sure that they are doing operational and maintenance. And the model, asset mapping and analysis, RUWASA from the headquarters, they are taking it, and it is going to be integrated at the national level. So there is a lot to say, Madam Jean. I think maybe we can find a time, then we will be able to share our experience. But the model has helped. I can tell you there are some kind of CBO so that they even have CPA accountant. So the model is working, and we are still going there, but I think after several years, all our CBOs will be operating under level 1. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you. I like the energy. I like the energy. Honorable George from Ghana, kindly come and share. And thank you so much for accepting to share on short notice. We apologize for that, but it's good that you are here to share with us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Honorable George Boache, the Regional Minister for Half Region. Ghana has 16 regions, and I happen to be the minister for one of them, one of the newest regions in Ghana. As you are all aware, water is life. So the government of Ghana doesn't play with provision of water. The government attaches so much importance to the provision of water, such that if you play with water provision, the next day you find yourself out of government. So all of us are committed to the provision of water for our citizens. But before 1998, provision of water was mainly in the hands of an agency called Ghana Water Company. And their focus was in the urban areas, that's the big towns. And it was to the disadvantage of those in the small towns and then peri-urban communities and then the villages. So in 1998, the government came out of a legislation setting up the Community Water and Sanitation Agency. And the focus of this agency was to ensure provision of water in the peri-urban areas, small towns, and then the villages. So initially, when the program started, Community Water and Sanitation Agency's main charge was to provide the system and then leave the management of the system to the local communities. But lo and behold, like my sister from Tanzania said, we started experiencing the same challenges: embezzlement, lack of good water quality, and then what have you. So the government decided to rethink the situation and then decided that in order to ensure quality and the sustainability of the system, there was a need to give Community and Water and Sanitation an additional responsibility of managing the systems after they have set up the systems. To start with, they started with those towns, small towns, with small town pipe systems. Instead of allowing the community to take the levies, maintenance and other things which were not forthcoming, Community Water and Sanitation Agency decided to take over. And since the takeover, management of these systems have been very effective and efficient. What now is left is with the small pipe systems, and gradually these ones are also being taken over. And then our donors who are coming in, when they come in and then they set up the systems, they have every right to also manage the systems. So some of them, most of them, have also introduced these electronic payment systems, and things are working well for us in Ghana. And with specific reference to my region, we've made it a law that Community Water and Sanitation Agency should take over all the systems in the region and manage them well for us. And since then, we have not been experiencing any problems, and I've had my peace of mind. And when I sleep, I can sleep up to 6 o'clock the following day. So that is what is happening in Ghana. Thank you very much.
Very much, Honorable George. Thank you so much for inspiring us. Things are happening. Things are really happening in our countries. Sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but things are happening. The fact that we have thought about it, we've put in place frameworks, we are trying out those frameworks, we are failing, we are succeeding, we are learning, we are moving. I think for me that activity, that action, is not that we are sleeping. We are not sleeping, we are not spending sleepless nights. We are doing fine. The challenges are still there are still many, but the fact that we are embracing those challenges and, doing something about them. I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Martha Naigaga from the Ministry of Water and Environment, to lead us into the closing of the session. Thank you so much for being good participants.
Thank you, Jen. And Yvonne and Engineer Ahmed are itching to get out of this seat. I will leave you. Thank you so much. Please give them a round of applause. We have come to the end of this session, and just before we close, I want to thank you all wonderful participants for coming to join us in this session. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I want to thank our wonderful presenters, and I am sure you have heard the journey from the east to the west, of Africa. So now we have the feel of the whole continent, don't we? Yes, you have heard our story as Uganda, where we came from. 30 years plus of Engineer Ahmed in the water sector. He has told us the Ugandan story. And I am sure you know it a little better than we came in. Thank you so much. And at this point, I want to invite one of our partners, Nabil, from the Hilton Foundation, to come and close the session. Welcome.
Thank you.
I will ask him to come and stand here.
Thank you. I am sorry, I'm not prepared. I didn't know that I was supposed to close the session, but I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And what I would say is that as the Hilton Foundation, we are pretty much committed to supporting the government of Uganda in this journey of piloting, testing, learning with districts and with all the partners, NGOs, operators, and a few of them are here in the room, but there are more in Uganda, to really learn from this experience with the O&M framework and see where there are areas that could be improved, areas that need adjustments. I think that we didn't even scratch the surface during this session, because 90 minutes aren't enough to cover a lot of ground, but I think there's excellent work going on in Uganda and with the leadership of the ministry. And we are very grateful for your leadership and for your partnership. And again, as we mentioned during the session in Uganda, when we had our convening, that we are fully committed to supporting the ministry. And I think I will join my voice to all our partners in really aligning ourselves behind the government and working in line with your priorities and under your guidance. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nabil. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. But I'll just invite you once again to another session in the afternoon when we shine a spotlight on Uganda in the Grumman Auditorium. Thank you for being wonderful participants. We've come to the end of our session. See you around and see you at 1:30.